welcome back to Uplift Equine Bitless Horse Project. Today we are going to watch the latest ride that I've got. Now next week we're not going to have a ride because this entire week here in the Midwest is just way too hot, like 100-degree days, so I'm like, I'm not riding. This day was about 82 degrees, and I mean, it was just good enough to kind of ride around at a walk like we've been doing, but it did end up being a little bit hot for him, so we had to take a little bit of a break in the shade off camera. Something that I thought was on camera, because when I set it up, it looked like I was covering that area, but it turns out I didn't, so we'll get better at this. All right, let's start. We are ready to ride. We're getting our reins situated. Of course, he's impatient today. So every time before I get on, I want to do another tack check, which is also the other reason why groundwork is really good, is to kind of loosen their muscles up and make sure that the tack is going to be a true fit before you get on. And with this particular bareback pad, since it's very padded around his spine channel, it tends to squish when I get on, and that means the girth will be very loose. If I have a standard girth pressure, as in if I was using a saddle, so it has to be slightly tighter so that it's at least still making contact with his skin when I get on. Since this bareback pad fits so nicely, the girth can be a little loose and still be comfortable and secure. Probably not secure enough for a bucking bronco, but I mean, that's why we do our groundwork, so that our horse doesn't become a bucking bronco. So I'm doing little half halts here. I am not pulling that hard. I'm really not. I'm just getting him to pay attention again. And I did cut out quite like a 10-minute section just now right here, because he was a little worked up, and we took 2 shade breaks, so that was the first one. It was just basically we stood in the shade. He didn't want to get out of the shade, so I took a pause. I noticed his breathing, and I noticed his heart rate between my legs, and they were elevated. So we just stood in the shade together until those 2 things went back down to normal. And he volunteered to move off on his own afterwards. So I think we just needed a bit of a break from the sun. And today he's going to be a little bit, I don't know what you'd call it, head shaky or heady, because of the itchiness on his face. Now right here, he didn't quite want to move off, so we just kind of stood there until he responded. And I think we were taking another shade break. I really thought that this was on camera when I was recording, because when I set this up, the shade was in the viewfinder. But turns out it wasn't. So here's another, we were taking another shade break to kind of get his mind right, give up both of us a break from the sun. And this is definitely something that you want to pay attention to with your own horse is, you know, what if they're bulking, why are they bulking? How are they uncomfortable? Are they in pain, you know? What is really going on? So today it ended up just being he needed a break from the sun, which is understandable. It was 82 degrees and slightly humid. And we're back. So today the name of the game is backing, turn on the forehand, circle, and a couple of steps each direction on the shoulder in on the circle. So I'm asking his inside hind to step under a little bit. It's going to be barely noticeable, but it's one of those things where you notice when you're riding, their shoulder softens, their head turns properly, not like extreme, but in a nice arc, and their inside hind leg will step under a little bit. I'm not going to be asking for extremes because this is his 13th ride, and you know, he's very young, he's very green. We don't want to get super straight into lateral work too quickly. So I'm asking him for a nice 1 to 2 steps of turn on the forehand each direction, where he's not going to drop his shoulder like we did while we were doing groundwork. Now right here, he's going to offer a kind of a turn on the haunches, but just kind of turning with his forehand. So I ask it again. So there he goes. And then I'm going to ask to go the other direction, and that's where he's going to run into a little bit of a problem. Going the other direction tends to be an issue for him. So he'll try again, going the other direction, thinking maybe that'll be fine. And I'm using my whip to kind of reinforce that, yes, we are moving the opposite direction away from that. So he's thinking. And, okay. Yep, and that slight turn, that little quarter turn, I'm happy with, because he finally did yield and move his body over. It wasn't picture perfect, but I did feel that he was yielding his front end over and actually turning around. So we have encountered the wooden platform. So this is going to be the first time that we get on the wooden platform together under saddle. So that's why I am praising him quite a bit when his front end is on there, because one of two things can happen. And I have ridden through both things on horses, is they are okay with it like he was, and they ignore it, they go over it, and everything is fine. Or they could explode and try to leap over it. Something that I want to avoid at this age because, you know, you get past the age of 35 and you feel that you should have a little bit more self-preservation. So I am asking for that shoulder in on the circle, so he's a little confused. I am moving my weight a little bit differently. I'm asking with the inside leg as the inside hind comes forward. Of course, let him take a little bit of a break because, you know, I'm a hopeless sap. And as you can see, he is a little, not stressed, but a little hot. But at that point, I decide that we're good. Because he did do like 2 steps with the shoulder in on the circle, both directions. You can't really see it, but I could feel it. It's a giving of the shoulder, mostly. It's a softening of the shoulder. So it's a softening of the inside. He leans more to the outside shoulder. He bends and then starts bringing that hind leg under. It's not obvious, it's not extreme at first, especially when you're riding. So, you know, it's not as interesting to watch at this level, but there you go, that's our ride. I kind of cut it off after that because, I mean, we could have gone a little bit farther if it was not as hot out, but as you could see at the end of the ride, his nose was a bit flared, and I said, you know what, let's just go back to the shade. I dismounted, loosened the girth, and let him go. So at the end, you can see him kind of taking a break, eating a little bit, and I just wanted him to enjoy the last part of it while I cleaned up. So there you go, that's our ride. And you could see, if you are a Patreon member, you could see that he was a bit squirrely in the beginning. He did rear up on me a couple of times during the beginning of our groundwork. His face was itchy, so, you know, he just stacked that and then just said, you know what, I'm done, I'm gonna rear, I'm out. But we worked through it without a huge negative issue. And then we had a wonderful ride after that. So that's why you do groundwork before you ride. You got to get their brain focused on what you're doing before you get on. Especially if you have a little bit more self-preservation than, you know, teenagers or kids in their 20s that are like, I'm just gonna ride through it. Like, oh yes, you do that. Yeah. Then when you know, get a little older, you just rather not. So anyway, thank you for watching, and thank you Patreon members and my patrons, Blake, Brandon, and Margie, for supporting us this month. And thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos more often, and I do appreciate you continually watching these videos. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please be kind, and be kind to your horse.